Today we're going to make a dust mask. So you'll need some cotton. These are some funky fat quarters that I picked up at the fabric shop. Some fabric scissors or regular scissors. Some elastic. Mine is quite wide. If you can get a thinner one than this, then that's going to work better. A template that looks a bit like half of Shredder's mask from the Ninja Turtles. Some pins and either a sewing machine or a needle and thread. So first we need to cut out our fabric. So grab your fabric and your template, and that flat edge opposite the curve, that's where we're going to put the elastic so that it can attach around the ears. So I'm leaving an extra inch there so that I can fold it over to make a channel. But if you have thinner elastics than me, then you might want to go for 1/2 inch or 3/4 of an inch, whatever works for your fabric. I'm also leaving a seam allowance around the template as well of about 1/4 inch. So once you've got your template positioned nicely, pin it in place and then carefully cut around it. Don't forget to leave that seam allowance as well. Then I'm pinning that piece I've cut out right side to right side and cutting that out. You could just fold your fabric in half and pin it and cut out both of these pieces at the same time. So now that we've got our two pieces, it's time to start constructing things. So the first bit we're going to stitch is along that curve at the front. So I'm lining them both up with the right sides facing, pinning along the seam, and stitching all the way along the curve from the top to the bottom. Then to make it sit a bit easier when we turn it the other way out, I'm clipping along the curve, so I'm just doing some small cuts along that curve and making sure I don't go all the way down to the stitches. You want to be just a little bit back from the stitches with your cuts. I also ironed the seam to one side so that when you put it on, it's not like sticking in your face, it's laying nice and flat. If you're going to iron this seam down, then make sure you do it before you add the top and bottom seams because they'll help to hold it down. And it's better to iron them both to one side rather than having them open. So now it's time to put the seams on the top and the bottom. So I'm pinning them down about 1/4 inch and stitching along those seams. So now we need to make the channels where the elastic is going to sit. So I'm folding those over and pinning them in place. And before you sew them, make sure that your elastic will fit down these. Then stitch those down. That's all the sewing part done. Now we just need to thread this elastic through. It can be a little bit fiddly. I find using some tweezers to stick up the other end of the tunnel and grab the elastic helps, or you could tie a knot in the elastic first to give you something to kind of wriggle it through the tunnel with. Once you've got the elastic in, you need to figure out how big you need to make the elastic so it fits comfortably around your ears. You want it to be nice and tight so that it's held in place, and you don't want it to be so loose that it's constantly slipping off of your ears. So I ended up going for about 8.5 inches. When you're figuring this out, don't forget you're going to be tying a knot in the end, which will probably take up about 1/2 inch of the elastic, depending on what size elastic you're using. So don't tie the knots too tightly at first. Tie them kind of loose, pop it on, see if it fits. If it does, then pull them tighter. If not, then you can undo them quite easily and adjust it until you get the perfect fit. Then, because we don't want those horrible knots just hanging out, making things look messy, if you pull the elastic, you can pull that knot so that it ends up going inside of the channel we created. As a disclaimer, this is not like professional dust protection, this is like basic dust protection. So if you want real full-on dust protection, you will need to get something to put underneath this, some kind of actual dust filter. So I hope this was helpful, guys, and I will see you next time. Bye!